Hey there, folks. This is Ed Beard again with the Employer's Edge. And right now in the market, there is just a lot of energy around moving workforces to remote arrangements. And there's a lot goes into that, but we're going to focus our conversation today on what behaviors tend to lend themselves to working remotely and what behaviors don't. And in terms of the boss, what boss behaviors, leadership behaviors tend to be really good at managing remote workforces, and what behaviors tend to have a challenge with that. Because the more you know going in, before you jump off that cliff, the more successful you're going to be. The goal is not just to do the same, the goal is to actually increase performance. So just know right now, when someone walks into your office or walks into HR and says, you know, if I wasn't sitting in traffic 2 hours a day each way, I could sure get a whole lot more done. I need to work from home. Well, yeah, there may be a cost savings, there may be a time savings, there's a lot of really good reasons to do it. And I'm not saying don't do it. Just understand behaviors have an impact, a huge impact, and you need to assess for that. We can help you with that with our talent traits assessment. What do I mean by behaviors that lend themselves to working remotely and behaviors that don't? All right. If you are working in a remote situation part-time, first off, don't think that part-time is an on-ramp to full-time. That is one of the biggest mistakes people get themselves into, because it worked for 1 day a week, worked for 2 days a week. How come it can't work the whole time? Well, because on the 3 days a week you're in the office, there's a lot of face-to-face interaction. You just get up and go talk to someone. So on a behavioral level, they don't necessarily impact trust and communication. Remotely, you're going to light some fires there that you don't really want to light. So understand this going in so you can prep people for it, have a plan, get their understanding, alignment, so that everyone's successful at this. Trust tends to get impacted quite regularly because of how people communicate. Take, for example, manageability. We assess for that. You're going to need some processes in place on remote workforces that you don't need in place internally. Well, some people are wired to be that way and think that way. Some people are not. So on the folks that are low manageability, they're not wired to follow processes. And so just know you're going to run into some challenge with that unless you set some very clear expectations. Bosses that are very process driven now have to manage people in that process without any face-to-face interaction. Well, when things don't go their way, it damages trust. A lot of conflict comes into play, which is the next behavior. There are folks that tend to avoid conflict. Well, remotely, because they can't immediately address conflict tends to grow. So when you have remote workforces, as in full-time remote workforces, conflict, by the time you handle that, it's bigger, badder, worse, and the fire's a whole lot hotter, because the mechanism to resolve conflict is a lot different than being internal. Some behaviors are good at that, some behaviors are not. So you need to assess, take charge, so that you know how to help and manage people who avoid conflict. It's a big issue. The other one that really affects trust is objectivity. We assess for that. Objectivity is, folks on the left side, or lower side of objectivity, they tend to see the world, develop beliefs and the meaning behind things based on their feelings. Well, when people are not together interacting with each other in meetings and even in their monthly 10-minute stand-up, when they're not interacting, they tend to formulate this belief that they're being ignored and you're leaving me out of these conversations on purpose. You're intentionally not including me. And they tend to, on a feeling level, not feel included. You need to assess for that so that you can help those people before they jump off the cliff into a remote work arrangement. Here's another one. This goes with both bosses and direct reports. However, it really impacts the boss, is their reasoning ability, their cognitive ability. That's their ability to process volumes of information. Remember, employee and boss are going to have to learn a new communication software. The employee now, just understand, you are now your own IT guy, right? Because IT is no longer there to just run up to the 5th floor and fix your computer, fix your laptop. You're going to have to learn how to do things you didn't know how to do before. So is the boss. Well, if they are not wired to be good learners, to process information in a timely manner, you're going to have a problem on your hands. So give them time. Help them understand what they are going to expect in terms of what they have to learn, so that when the moment approaches them and it's on them, they don't just freak out over the whole thing. They actually dive in. They knew it was coming. They knew it wasn't their strong suit, so they better step up. So anyway, these are a few of the behavioral level issues that will come into play that affect trust, affect communication, also affect accountability, because there's a big definition of that, or a very different definition of accountability when it comes to working remotely. Understand it, understand how behaviors are a huge influence on that. Some are good, some are not, for the employee, for the boss. Get that under control with an assessment. Again, if you want to just call me, happy to talk you through it, send you a talent traits assessment so you can understand it. This way you can be most effective at jumping on the energy train here on moving your workforce to a remote situation. Let's have this conversation and you're going to be more successful. This is Ed with the Employer's Edge. Thank you.